Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Mindful in Minutes podcast. Today, we are talking all about meditation and the moon. And this is something that I get asked about all the time. And I feel like I really don't know enough about it to do my own 101 episode. So I had to bring in someone that I consider a meditation and the moon expert. So today we are joined by Ashley Nguyen, and she created Awaken Wellness. And it's a safe space to awaken within through self-discovery, wellness practices. She's also a yoga teacher. She is a RYT 200, and she has over 300 hours of training in vinyasa, restorative yoga, yin, meditation, and yoga nidra. I will say she is a Yoga for You alum, which I love to shout out. And she offers a meditative embodiment style through mindfulness movement, breath connection, and expanded awareness. And something that I love best about Ashley, there's many things I love, but something I think she does that's really unique is the way that she intertwines different practices together. So whether it's yoga, sound healing, astrology, human design, Ashley's just amazing in all that she does. And she really guides you back to your own power within. And we're going to talk more about Ashley and Awake in Wellness because you can hang out with her both in person. You can do this really cool. I said I'd talk about it later, but I need to talk about it now because it's so great. She does this thing called the Self-Discovery Starter Pack, which I did a little bit ago. I want to say like a month or two ago. And it was so cool. We did a birth chart reading, human design, and numerology, like all together, like an opening and closing meditation. I'm going to ask Ashley to tell you more about it later, but she does it and it's very, very cool. So with all of that, Ashley, welcome to Mindful in Minutes.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me, Kelly. So honored to be here. So crazy hearing you do the intro live, honestly, because, I've been a listener of your podcast for like literally 5 years. And so it feels so full circle to be on it. And as we were listing all of the things that I'm trained in, I'm like, wow, Kelly's trained me in like half of that stuff. So honored to be here and talk about the moon.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. And of course, this is a part of what I'm calling the friendship series. And I remember when I first floated this idea past you, you and I have a tendency to like send voice notes back and forth, like either like DM or things like that. And I was like, Ashley, I have this idea. It's kind of crazy. I've never done guests before, like in almost 7 years. And you were the first person when I was like, I want to talk about meditation in the moon. You were the first person that I thought of. And I think I sent you in a voice note. And my criteria for someone that I consider a friend or like a work bestie is someone that I can out of the blue send a voice note that ends up being like a mini podcast episode about something work related or not. And it is always like well received and usually responded with a equally rambly, amazing, fun, juicy voice note back. And you definitely fit that criteria. So yeah, I thought it'd be fun to talk about our origin story because I think the way that you and I became friends is kind of unique because I usually try to keep it really professional. Maybe this sounds bad as to like, oh, you were a podcast listener and then a student of mine. And then we went on retreats and all of these things. And now we're friends. But I thought we should talk about our origin story and how we met and how we got to this place here recording an episode of the friendship series together.
Yeah, it definitely is unique. I love receiving your voice notes, just whether it's talking about Taylor Swift or pop music or human design, my love life, letting me like psychoanalyze your kids through astrology and human design. It's always such a fun time. And I love that we ping pong. But yeah, like I said, I was been listening to your podcast as a way to get into meditation when I was, in my early 20s, burning out through corporate life. And then I went through a breakup and you had a retreat in Hawaii. And so my body was instantly like, I need to be there. And that was where we first met in Hawaii on my first ever retreat. And that was such a fun time, like so many beautiful, amazing souls. I still kind of think about that experience like every day and just like how it's shifted so much in me. And then I did another retreat with you in Iceland for New Year's that same year. And then throughout 2023, I did like a little mentorship with you. I went to even before that, I did your yoga nidra training in Toronto. Like I've just been in your in your face a lot the past few years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. I was trying to remember how the series of events happened. And I thought that the first time we had met in person was in Hawaii. And I just remember just having like so much fun. And one of my favorite things about retreats is that you really get to know people. There's something about spending X amount of days like traveling together, like sharing meals, sharing little laughs, little quirky things that happen when you're with a group of people. And for whatever reason, I remember you deciding to climb up that, like, what was it? Was it like a bamboo shoot or like a tree?
Yeah.
And you just started like scaling it and like you just levitated like up this tree. And I was like, how did you just do that? It was so amazing.
I shocked myself doing that, honestly, but I remember we were doing like the bamboo forest meditation and like forest bathing. And then we saw some other people climbing. And then I was like, why don't I try? And then I just kind of put 2 hands, 2 feet, and I just like went up. And then I looked down and everyone's like way down there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how'd I get up here? But there's something about the energy, like it makes you want to try funky stuff like that.
There is something about the energy. And I think something that really resonated with me, like when we first met, was when you were sharing sort of the crossroads that you were at. Like it was something that I really related to in terms of like being at a crossroads, like feeling burnt out, wanting to really step into a more like heart-centered business practice and just deciding where life was going to take you. And it's something that's so funny and interesting because people usually, A, don't come to meditation when everything's going well in their life, and B, oftentimes when people have just experienced a big change or they're going through something, that's when they're like, now's the time for me to take a retreat. Not that that's always the case, but I do feel like there's some similarities because we have times in life where we're like, I need a hard reset, whatever that looks like. And I remember you feeling like Hawaii, which is now such a special place for you. I feel like you go back all the time.
I do.
It was that hard reset in a way.
It definitely was. That point in the retreat in my life, like I had just gone through a breakup. I had just left a job and I had just started like dating someone else as well. So it was just within a very short period of time, a lot of huge changes. And even just, it was more like this urge to get to know myself better. And that's always what I've sought meditation for, is a way to get to know myself and really see who I am. Because up until that point, like a lot of my life, I was told who I was, told who I needed to be. And, the expectations of society and family and the world around you when you're young, I feel like can be so overwhelming. Like those voices can get so loud. So when you go on a retreat and you go on meditation and you're with like-souled people, you really get to distill down like the noise and come back to who you are. And that's really what I felt seeing on that retreat. Like people saw me for who I really was, my, silliness, my adventurous, my deep qualities to me, my insight, all of the spectrum. And I felt so accepted for finally sharing all of those parts of me to other people. And that just like, I really am so like, I feel like if it wasn't for that retreat, I really probably would not be here, like just on this path right now, because there's so many downloads you get on retreats and those moments of stillness. And the way you and Daniela, shout out to Daniela, created that experience of just like fun, but also like this space to really get to know yourself. I think that was the hugest takeaway I received from that. And just the no pressure, the no judgment, like that's all that we really want to feel in life, is this ability to be truly who we are. And that retreat was such a huge change because after that, I just felt like a huge energy shift. Like I started to feel less. I remember actually in Hawaii, we were in the car talking. It was like just us two. And I remember telling you about how I had constantly felt judged and that this theme of judgment had been a huge wound for me. And I remember you saying like, there was a certain point where you were just like, so what? Like, so what if they think I'm weird? So what if, blah, blah, blah. And that really changed things for me, where it's just like the like, why did I feel the need to care so much about what other people thought and how I was going about my life and what I wanted to do. And I think that wound of judgment had prevented me from pursuing the things I actually had wanted, like teaching yoga and holding space for people and allowing people to go deep. And then, diving into more readings and the moon and all of that stuff like that judgment wall had stopped me from doing it. And after Hawaii and after our conversation and just our time together, really dug down and peeled the layers of why was that there in the first place? And can I let it go?
Oh, I love all of that. So much in that. First, I want to say one of my favorite things too about retreats is that I feel like I get to be seen for who I am. And like so much of when you said that, like that resonates with me because I feel like there is a way that like walls can come down and not that I'm, not, I don't know, you can tell me if this is me just being unself-aware because you know me both from like podcast space and also now as like a friend. But I feel like you get to know a different side of me. Like you can only really share so much of yourself when you're like monologuing into a microphone versus like when you're sharing a meal with someone or you're having just like these little conversations like in between practices or you're going on a little hike or whatever it is. And so I always love that too because I feel like I can really let myself be seen like without judgment too, and that I can sometimes let that silly side out or share about like other things and I love that. And so much of what you're saying about judgment is so like that resonates with me too, because something that I really realized, and I think this was kind of along the lines of what we were chatting about in the car, like way back, but judgment is something like it only ever holds us back. It really does nothing. The person who's judging, it's like, what does that do for that? Like it really has nothing to do with them. It's just like, it doesn't impact them in the same way. It doesn't hold them back for their dreams. It doesn't hold them back from their happiness. It's just this kind of like icky thing that they're choosing to do. But it really just makes us hold ourselves back. And so why would we let someone else's judgment hold ourselves back? And that's what I think about too, is you can judge me. Okay, judge me. And then what? Like what? That's all that's going to do if I internalize that judgment is stop me from my own happiness, from following my dreams, from finding my own harmony, like even into not just career, but into parenting. There's a lot of judgment of like different parenting choices or, oh, you're, choosing to this. It's interesting. Like with retreats, it's kind of split down the middle of people being like, oh, I think it's amazing you still do retreats, even though you're a mom and, that you're taking that time for yourself and you're still cultivating this thing that you love. And then it's on the other side is people keep being like, oh, so you just like leave your kids for a week to go to Iceland? And either way, no matter how they feel about it, whether they're kind of having this like, both are judgments. One is like kind of negative and one's like more positive. That doesn't change what I'm doing or how I feel about it. And internalizing anyone's judgment really only like impacts me negatively. And so if you can just kind of say, and what? Like, so what? Okay. Like, and moving on.
100%. And that's what the biggest lesson meditation and practicing it over time has taught me is to just see my thoughts and my feelings more objectively, because I did used to put so much weight and like almost giving away my power in to other people's judgments. And like you said, like almost letting them have so much of an influence on me. And by internalizing these external judgments, I'm really not living like my highest self, my highest purpose. And meditation had started to create that space where I'm like noticing the judgment, noticing the feeling, and seeing if there's a space in between where I could separate them and seeing if I could come back into my own power of what I think is best for me and what I want to do and what I feel called to, and almost coming back to like my own inner authority rather than letting other people define that authority for me. So with like meditation and just with astrology, human design, like all of these things with self-discovery is why I feel so passionate about learning and like cultivating this relationship to yourself so that you don't sink into the weight of others' judgments and let that hold you back, because everyone has a gift that they're here to share. Because if you had let, your these external judgments of people, saying things about you leaving your kids, you would not be able to literally change lives on these retreats and create this domino effect to create such a bigger impact in the world too. And that's what you feel called to do. And that's what feels right to you. And for me as well, even just like leaving corporate job, which, I'm still in the process of, it's getting there, but like that's a huge part where I feel like there is judgment just around what career, quote unquote, should look like and how much money you, quote unquote, should make. So really cultivating that space within yourself to be like, this is right for me. And I can so wholeheartedly trust myself in this decision or in this, reasoning for myself that I have such a strong belief in myself that I can easily block away the judgments of others.
That's so beautiful. Everything that you said. And one thing that came to me as you were talking is that those people often who are judging you for following a dream, it's usually they're somehow triggered because maybe they had a dream they wanted to follow and they chose not to, or maybe there's, something that they wish they felt inspired by something. And again, it usually says more about them than you. And I think that when I think about judgment and people judge me, those who are like, oh, you leave your kids and just go and whatever. The whole thing's so dismissive. Like, you're just going to go gallivant around Iceland or wherever. And I also like to think in those moments in terms of like, if any parents are listening and they have a hard time with people judging them, is that also think about what you're modeling for your children. And I think it's so important that I model for Pork Chop and Poppy what it looks like to follow a dream and to maybe have an unconventional career, and how you can, do your best to be a loving and present mother and also have these things outside of your identity solely as being a mom, and what that's also teaching my children at this young age and what that is. But I don't know. I don't know if they're quite getting it yet, because I asked Pork Chop the other day, because he knows that I say, oh, what does Dad do for work? And he says, Dad's a doctor. He's going to the hospital to work. And I asked him and I said, what does Mom do for work? And he goes, Mom types on the computer. And that's
there's a lot going on behind that computer, Pork Chop.
I was like, there's a lot of intention being put into every push of the key, Pork Chop.
Well, he doesn't go to like the studio with you or, to the sound baths that you do. So he can't physically see it.
I know. He just sees me like writing meditations or like writing emails. He's like, Mom types on a computer. But he said it in a way that he felt like that was a pretty cool job to type on the computer.
Well, that's all that matters.
Yes. And so, Ashley, before we dive into, I want to hear all about the moon, meditation, how we can use the moon for meditation. But I want you to tell me a little bit more about yourself. I also want to hear about Awake and Wellness, because this is a really beautiful business that I've had the pleasure and the privilege to see grow in real time, which is so cool. And so I want to hear a little bit about your backstory, how you got into all of this, and then also Awake and Wellness, which is your business, how it was born and what it is.
Yes. So I'm Ashley. I have fell into kind of meditation, yoga, astrologies, more so out of this desire to learn more about myself. Like, kind of touched on this, but the way I just grew up throughout life was very, I guess, there's a plan, there's these XYZ boxes you need to meet, and then that's your life. And so I actually, at a pretty early age, I guess in my early 20s, I had checked off all those boxes. I had a great career, lived in a big city, made a lot of money, but still something felt so missing. And just, I had this yearning and like this just inexplicable urge to be like, I feel like I should be doing more to be of service to the world. And then, as I mentioned, I was in a corporate job, very burnt out, fell into meditation as a way to just like come back to myself, especially living in New York City where it's so overstimulating and so busy and hectic. Like, I didn't realize how much my nervous system would be so like dysregulated by being there for a few years. So meditation just became so crucial, and yoga had me just kind of shut out the outside world, like put away the phone, put away all of these like like stories and narratives in my mind and really allow me to come into my body. Cause I've had just some crazy, just in body experiences through meditation and yoga where I have felt like literal, like memories in certain parts of my body get released and just felt this like cosmic connection to like just having lots of downloads and realizing that like, wow, I am so in tune with this part of myself. And because when we show up in like, the office or on the subway, that part of us is so shut down. But I really truly believe that we all are so intuitive and so connected. And it's just a matter of us opening up to be there. Cause I used to be very distrusting of the world around me and just very hesitant to do anything, like really scared to start anything just because of that fear of judgment, that fear of failing, that overachieving mindset where if I start something, it has to be perfect right off the bat. And that's kind of what had held me back from really pursuing whatever I wanted, like really pursuing Awaken Wellness at the time. So it took a few years of just internal reflection, healing, meditation, journaling, practicing, learning, and I felt really called towards the end of 2022 when I finished my yoga teacher training to start Awaken Wellness and actually share all of these things that I've gathered throughout my journey as someone who's recovering from people pleasing, from overachieving, from type A, like literally anyone who has felt like they've done everything right in life and followed, exactly what their parents said, but still felt unfulfilled. That really is what Awaken Wellness is, a space for you to dive deeper into yourself. And like I said, coming back to your power within, and what that power looks like to me and my lens is through self-discovery. So astrology, human design, these cosmic bits of information that we're all imprinted with and infused with the moment we're born. The fact that I just resonate so heavily with my astrology and my human design and like learning transits as well. And like the connecting with the moon, that has felt so affirming just throughout the journey of life in general, because once you know this stuff about yourself, you don't have to suppress it. You get this like liberating feeling that like, oh, this is really how I was meant to show up in this world. This is what my soul chose. So it just felt so affirming that all of these, the hardworking, the like diligence, like all of these, like, I come from a technical background as well. So all of these things weren't really present in my chart. So I'm like, that's why I don't feel as resonant with it. And that like, I could do it for a few years, but at a certain point, I'm starting to feel myself be drawn to something greater. And that's what like astrology, human design, it shows us that there is this greater force, this greater universe, divine timing that like when you live by your human design, live by your birth chart and astrology, things will just line up for you. There's like less resistance. Like life can really be that easy once you allow yourself to flow in how you're made instead of resisting it and trying to be someone that you're not, because maybe you saw someone else be successful when they followed these steps and that worked for them. So you're trying to follow them exactly, but it's not working. So for Awaken Wellness, it's really about the awaken part is, a play on the term awaken within. So there's an IN in awaken. And then the wellness part is just my love for sharing meditation and yoga nidra and yoga and just holding space for you to embody those cosmic gifts. So that's where kind of I fuse both astrology, human design into kind of the practices that we do in meditation and in yoga so that you can actually feel what that's like. And almost like I'm trying to offer this, sense of connection that I felt in certain areas of meditation and yoga. So I offer readings, like Kelly mentioned, the self-discovery starter pack reading, which includes a little bit of meditation, just because whenever I received a reading, it can feel so mental and heady. So I like to do a meditation to kind of get you in your body. And then I kind of fuse astrology, your birth chart. I use, Western astrology, whole sign, and then human design, which is like your energetic DNA. It's one piece of it is astrology, but there's like 5 other traditional modalities to human design as well. And I kind of weave the both together so that you can understand both in like cohesion with each other. Because I feel like learning both is so helpful than seeing them as completely separate sides to you. And then I also, do private yoga nidra sessions, private meditation. I'm going to be starting a little offer where you can get a custom meditation from me. It's called the Stillness to Self, custom 30-minute guided meditations, where I look at your birth chart and then I create and record a meditation for you. And that's for you to use whenever you need to be reminded of your gifts. And I also am going to be sharing just a lot more of these wellness guides related to your moon sign, related to your astrology, how you can weave all that in together. So I can talk about that a little bit later. But overall, Awaken Wellness is like this blend of self-discovery and this blend of wellness.
That's so cool. And I do want to hear more about those things that you have coming up, especially I want the meditation to my birth chart, because I don't know if I've ever told you this, Ashley, but I sometimes like to meditate with you on Insight Timer, because I know you're on, yes, I even got a premium subscription just so that I could so that I can meditate with you, because I love a guided meditation too. And I feel like you just have like great imagery and all of that. And so I'm like, sign me up for the custom meditation from Ashley based on my birth chart. And I do want to dive into the moon stuff, but briefly, can you give us like the 1 or 2 sentence overview of, for anyone listening and they're unfamiliar with the terms birth chart, and human design, and also like numerology? Like, can you just give us the quick, like, if they're listening and they're like, what are these women talking about? So what is a birth chart?
Yes. So your birth chart is the way the sky was oriented and the planets and the signs, what they all were in the moment you were born, the minute you were born. So that encompasses your rising, sun, moon, all the other planets, and also the houses, which is kind of where in your life these planets are going to be impacting you. Your human design is how you're meant to work with your energy. It's your energetic DNA. So it has this whole system that tells you there's 5 types. Based on one of the 5 types, you'll get to know how to use that energy and how your energy naturally is meant to flow. It tells you a lot about your, ability to work on business or even connect with other people, or how to make big decisions in life, or how you're meant to move on a day-to-day basis energetically. And in numerology, it's this idea where we add up your birthday and birth year, like all the numbers in it, like the numbers have frequency and energy to them as well. And by adding up all the numbers of your birthday, you can get your life path number, which can reveal a lot about how you felt called to, show up in this lifetime. And then you can also do it for like your yearly cycle. So we all live in 9-year cycles. So you can use numerology to see which year cycle that you're in. So for example, I'm in a 6-year cycle right now. So going through lots of like home changes and, family reorienting stuff.
A big family year for you, I remember. Yeah. And I remember, when we did like my reading, the thing that stuck out to me is that my next year is supposed to be like a pretty big year. There's a lot going on both in my birth chart and numerology and everything like next year, which this year has been a longer year. So I'm really holding on to
the excitement and momentum.
Yes, that there's stuff on the horizon. And I also, for anyone listening, your birth chart, this is me, I very much consider myself like to have like a kindergarten level understanding of like all of these things. So the birth chart is that thing that you'll see on social media sometimes that looks like the big wheel, and it has like all these different symbols in it. And then when you hear people being like, and then look for wherever your rising moon in the whatever house it is, conjunct with Saturn, and they're like speaking this like other language, but they show the picture of the thing that kind of looks like a wheel. That's usually what the birth chart looks like. And then human design is one where it kind of looks like the outline of a person, sort of like a really simple outline of a person. And then there's like squares and triangles and like different lines connecting different ones. So that's how I remember them.
Yes.
Or like when I see them, I'm like, oh, that's what that is.
Yes, you're so good at breaking it down, because I see them every day and I'm like, oh, it's this and it's this. But yeah, visually, that's how it looks.
Yes.
And when people say like, look for, maybe if it was like the Pisces lunar eclipse, like look at where Pisces is in your chart. You want to look at basically your chart, look for Pisces, and then see what house it's in. So there's like on the inside of that wheel, there's like little numbers 1 through 12. Those represent the houses. Those will kind of tell you like where in your life, you're going to be experiencing the shift the most and how. So yeah, that's a little teaser, I guess, into what we're going to talk about soon. But I'll do my best to kind of break down the birth chart and like how you can find this for yourself as well. Because it can be really confusing. So that's why I love kind of breaking it down for people who are curious and just want to learn more. And I feel like I have a really digestible approach to it because it doesn't need to be so complicated with like the jargon and the aspects and like adding on layers. Like I feel like today I want to talk about just the most simplest, easiest way, like how to work with the moon.
Yes. And I love that so much. And you truly have this really easy, like digestible, like even me with like my kindergarten level understanding, like it really resonated and you do such a great job of like breaking it down. So talking about the moon, Ashley, when did you first fall in love with the moon?
Oh my God, my whole life.
You love it. I know you love
it. So I'm a Cancer rising and that makes the moon my planetary ruler. So the moon is a huge part of my own birth chart and anyone else with like Cancer placements. So that means do you have Cancer sun, Cancer moon, Cancer rising? The moon is going to be a huge part of your chart. So even when I was younger, just feeling really drawn to like looking at the moon, trying to take the best pictures of it and just being obsessed with literally how it looks in the sky, because especially like my favorite is when it's rising on the horizon and it looks like so close to us. I just find her so beautiful. And actually didn't really start really intentionally more manifesting with the moon and looking at the sign that it's in until about like last year, like I guess almost a year and a half ago, when I was in Hawaii actually, and you just feel so connected to nature when you're in Hawaii. And my friend and I thought it would be fun to do a little moon ritual. She just bought a book at this bookstore that had like moon spells on it. So we were like, let's have a little witchy night and try some moon spells. It was really fun. We had like little candles. We set the mood. We had a nice playlist going on. And I just felt so renewed like that night when we had started the new moon ritual. And like, it's a powerful time for manifestation. So I was like, okay, let me try it. Like, let me write some things that I want and see what happens. And then within, sometimes with the new moon manifestations, they can come in by the next full moon. Sometimes it takes a full 6 months until it's in the full moon of the same sign. But for this time around, within like the 2 weeks, I had started to see some stuff like start to come true. And so I was like, okay, there's something here. And I feel so connected to the moon already. So I felt like, why don't I look more into how I can like harness its power? So then I had this just random, idea to just do a meditation. I had actually was in the middle of your meditation teacher training too. And it was kind of like one of those like practices, like, let me practice like for the final, so I started writing some and then adding in the flair of the zodiac sign and then whether it was like a new or full moon. And yeah, I created it and I was like, wow, it feels really in flow to be meditating on this just because I feel like it's how we can connect more to it. Because sometimes depending on where we live, we can't always see the moon or be out in the moon's presence. So the meditation is just a good way to have you almost like bring the essence of the moon into your home and into your practice and really feel connected to it so that you can even like amplify its energy. Because we have this like literal like cosmic like magic wand in our sky that not many people use to their own advantage in a way. So I've noticed that as I tend to, slow down my life towards the full moon and then, start things back up and have a little bit more energy after the new moon, like it just feels so in sync and so in flow. And I've also been diving deeper into just women's health and my cycle too, and really like honoring that and noticing like, oh, like symbolically the new moon represents like the menstruation cycle for the women's cycle. So that's like a time of rest and recovery and like low energy. And then when we head towards ovulation, that's like the full moon, like really bright, lots of amplification happening. So even as I sync like my own cycle with the moon, I can feel my energy like literally waning and waxing with the moon and realizing that like as women, we should be empowered to, live by this sort of like monthly cycle rather than forcing ourselves to show up a certain way every single day too. So the health benefits with the moon, meditating with it, just loving on it. That's kind of how I got into it. It's kind of like it's not very like clear, I guess, like path to it. It's just been like always there and always like a big part of my life, and just slowly like harnessing it with more and more intention over time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that you love. And I think sometimes when you have passions or things that you love or you just enjoy, like people will be like, why do you like whales? I'm like, I don't know. I just like them.
You just like them.
Yeah, it's not like I had any like true like defining moments that I'm like, oh, this was the moment that I fell
This
in love
whale
with.
spoke to you.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I just have always liked them. And it's just an interest that I have. And then, I think that when we have these interests, it's so fun to be able to connect with almost like that childlike wonder to want to learn more. And then, oh, I see a book about it. And so then you pick it up and then you learn more. And it's really fun. It's like fulfilling and fun at the same time to like
Yes.
just have passions. Taking a quick break from Ashley to let you know that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And I want to take a moment before I tell you about BetterHelp to shout out my therapist because she is phenomenal and I am grateful for her. But do you know who I don't always say I'm grateful for? Myself. And I feel like we're so quick to thank other people in our lives, be grateful for them, but we don't thank ourselves enough. And sometimes it's hard to remember that we're just doing the best we can with what we have and that we should truly be grateful for ourselves and for showing up every single day. And so if you are thinking about trying therapy, I highly recommend it. I have talked about how great therapy has been for me. And it's in therapy that I'm able to really unpack some of these things, like realizing, oh my gosh, I show gratitude to everyone but myself. And that's where I really find the benefit in therapy is getting that alternative perspective and being able to unpack things. So if you're thinking of starting therapy and you want to find a winner like I did in Lindsay, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. And you just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch anytime for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/minutes today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/minutes. So as we kind of break all these things down, you said so much. They're all such good things. Coming down to the 101, because you are about ready to, you could teach like the master's level in meditation in the moon, in my opinion. But let's break these down one by one. So I know that we're supposed to do different meditation practices based on the different moon phases. This is something that I know, but I don't always fully understand, or I'm still learning what the best meditation practices for the different moon cycles are. So let's start with new moon and full moon. Which one do you naturally start with? Is there like a beginning? The new moon is the beginning, or like
So
full moon?
Yeah. So the moon cycle, the new moon is when, it's completely dark. We don't really see the moon from Earth. So that often represents, the beginning of the new cycle. And because the moon is new and it's slowly going to be growing from this point, that's a good time to do like a manifestation meditation. Really getting clear on what it is you want, what you want to call in. New moons, especially, like, you want to be careful to do it after the moon is officially new, because that's going to be when you can plant the seeds for what you want to harvest 6 months down the line. And just adding in like a tiny layer of the zodiac sign. So depending on what sign the new moon is in. So we, more recently, I guess earlier this month, we had a new moon in Virgo. We had a new moon in Virgo. So setting intentions or manifestations around kind of Virgo themes will just like give it that little kick. But if you don't really want to track the astrology of it all, new moons are great for manifesting, because that's the part of the new cycle. You don't want to it's a great time to also like launch new things as well, because they'll be ripe to like grow over time, or, starting a new habit or starting a new project could be a great time during a new moon, because this is kind of like the beginning, like the sky is almost like a blank slate for you to start adding your paint on, so to speak. And for full moons, that's a good time for releasing. So letting go of something, harvesting whatever has culminated over the past either moon cycle, so the past month, or even the past 6 months, and just really giving yourself time to celebrate yourself. Like, it's not really a good time to start anything new or manifest. Some people manifest during the full moon, but I've heard it works just against the flow of nature because the moon is already full and taking up space. So there's no space for your manifestations to take up in a way. So full moons are great for like celebrating, releasing. Yeah.
And what do you do on the full moon personally, Ashley? It's full moon. You're going to meditate. Like, what do you do?
For me, I like to have a little evening routine where I put on like my pretty little projectors, put on some vibey music and do some like restorative yoga, like just being in my body so I can like kind of feel, because the energy is just so intense. And usually for me as a Cancer rising on a full moon, I feel pretty drained close to full moons. So I like to just like kind of empty out like my energetic bucket. When I meditate, I kind of meditate on something I'm ready to let go of, like from the heart space, like noticing any tightness, any gripping in the heart, and feeling like the light of the moon, the full moon, like almost break apart this tightness or this tension and allow it to be, be released from my own body. And then also sometimes it depends on like where in the body I'll feel it. Sometimes I have a really like, full mind, or my mind's just been so busy. So then I'll allow like, the moon to clear off my mindset. I love breathing with the full moon as well. And just like, something that you love to do on your retreats, or like the orbital breath. Too. So the full moon and the orbital breath is really nice, just like cleanse and like bring that calm down, but really taking it easy around full moons, and journaling a lot as well. And just like almost like by putting words to paper or by speaking it out loud, you're allowing the universe to really take on whatever you want to release.
Okay. And then on the flip side, it is a new moon. What are you doing? You personally?
New moons, I kind of have a similar routine where I'll set the mood, light some Palo Santo, light some candles. This time when I'm journaling, I'm more so journaling about what I want to manifest. And then I'll journal first on what I want to manifest, and then I'll kind of meditate on like just seeing myself in the darkness of the night sky, like seeing myself in nature, just surrounded by all the stars, and then allowing the manifestations to kind of flow through me, and like almost as if they're kind of frequency and energy within me. And then I'm consciously trying to bring that frequency out into the world so that it can manifest and come true. So sometimes I'm, in terms of like the meditation and my little ritual, I'll drink some like cacao on the new moon as well, just to like open that up. I also have this thing called like the golden moon milk from Anima Mundi Herbals. And it's like I do that on the full moons because it's very yellow and very like powerful and bright. And then cacao, I feel like, is more just grounding and like settling for this like new moon time where the energy is like generally like lower. And just taking a lot of time to like nourish my like nervous system too, by really connecting more with whatever it is I want to call in, like any intentions. It really allows me to bring more intention into like just my life and my cycles, because there's so much of life that we could fall in a loop and just move on repeat on autopilot. But the new moons kind of tell me like, what do I need to bring more of in my life? And the full moons tell me like, what do I really need to let go of, so that anything I want to bring in or anything I want to let go of doesn't get forgotten by being on autopilot in life.
I love that. Something that I've been enjoying and something I've done for a long time with manifestation is taking whatever I'm manifesting and writing it on a small piece of paper, and then tearing off that piece of paper, folding it up and holding it in my hands. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, Ashley, but one of my first, other than yoga, one of my first kind of actually, was this before? No, this was shortly after I became a yoga teacher, but I'm Reiki trained. And so I love, one of my first loves is like energy healing. And I imagine, in fact, one of the first times I didn't even know it was called manifestation. I had been taught that it was like infusing an idea with Reiki energy. And I had written it on this little piece of paper. And what I wrote was, I want a thriving and abundant yoga business. And I remember so vividly, I wrote this when I was living in Missouri. It would have been almost 10 years ago now. And that was the specifics. That was it. And I was just starting to build my business, to build Yoga for You, the first iteration. I had like some local classes and I wanted to have like a studio, all of that. And I think of that moment often because I really do feel like that was the kickoff to like something that's still growing into fruition, even like a decade later. And I remember writing it down on this small piece of paper, folding it was like a Post-it, folding it up small, holding it in my hands, and then imagining that idea as being infused with like both Reiki, but what now, from what I'm hearing you say, I want to continue to do this, but then also imagine it's being infused with like this new moon, like light and energy, and doing that. And I just find that for whatever reason, when I write something kind of specific down on a piece of paper, hold it in my hands and imagine that I'm just infusing that piece of paper, that idea with this energy, it's just a really powerful practice for me, and that things tend to come to fruition. And I think I'm going to start doing that now on the new moon.
Yeah, because energy is so important, and the moon provides us with that energy as well. And on full moon, sometimes I had this like wish paper for a little bit, and anything that I was really, really wanting to release, I would write it on the wish paper and then burn it in a candle as well so that it could really be released and like taken away. But actually, I went through my journal for this podcast just to see like anything that I've wrote down in the past, new moons, and what have they come true. So do you want to hear some?
Yes. Oh, I'm like sitting on the edge of I'm not even in a seat. There's no video component. Ashley can see me. I'm sitting alone in the dark in my tiny closet. You now see the Mindful Minutes closet. Yeah. The light has burned out, so I'm like sitting in dark on the floor. But I'm sitting at the edge of my floor. Please tell me what you've written down.
Oh, I love these because it's just by learning through stories and anecdotes, it feels so real. So last year in the new moon in Scorpio, I was manifesting, and this is like quote in my journal: I hold space for a group of individuals on the path to personal discovery. I initiate plans for an astro circle. I drew some dollar signs, Venmo, PayPal from yoga/nidra offerings. And then literally the full moon in Scorpio happened around like April 23rd. And on April 27th, that was my first astro circle that I hosted.
Wow.
And so that was like, I just realized this last night when I was looking at it. I was like, whoa, that like really the 6-month cycle came through. And I'd even in a previous Sagittarius new moon journal prompt, I put something like my website, I was in the midst of redefining my website. My website is clean, organized, and highly alluring to attract bookings. I have all my events there and begin to offer personalized self-discovery readings. And that's what and then in 2024, 6 months later, more so many readings have come in, and just really starting to refine and expand that offering has been so exciting, from it being like a literal seed in my journal to like a physical thing that I have now shared with you and hope to share with other people.
That is so cool. I love hearing about all of that. And is it possible to manifest things like faster than the 6-month cycle, or like 6 months is like, this is a question, from me personally, should I be, when I'm writing down like what I want to manifest, I'm infusing these ideas, should I be looking at, 6 months ahead and being like, what kind of planning in advance? Like, is a 6-month cycle thing like typical? Tell me more about this. Should I be planning ahead 6 months ahead in my manifestations?
Yeah, I mean, the 6 months is going to be where you'll see more of the results, just because it's for example, like the example I had, the Scorpio new moon in 6 months, the Scorpio full moon is happening. So that's when you'll see the biggest culmination, because it's in that same sign. And like if new moons are beginnings and full moons are culminations, having it linked to the same sign by it being in Scorpio would just make it more like powerful. I think it's more so to say, like, if it doesn't happen within the next month or 2 weeks, then to kind of be patient and like continue to take aligned action and just begin to see, like, in the next 6 months, has there been even more growth? It just might be like when you manifest, it could be, I mean, the universe works in mysterious ways, but it could show up for you in 2 weeks. It could show up for you on the next waxing gibbous of that same sign. But I think it's more so the 6-month thing is not like a hard and fast rule, but it's more so like you'll see probably more of the effects by then. But your manifestations will probably come in like waves, like gradually throughout time. Like, of course, with aligned action as well. And a little practice that I like to do at the end of all my new moon manifestations is like, and say, and so it is, just to like nice little wrap, affirm it, and really kind of like seal it in and just almost the thing with the moon is that we don't have to control it. Like I feel like our ego minds want to have as much impact and as much of a say in how things like flow. But oftentimes it's going to be happening for you in the background, just energetically, whether you realize it or not.
At the end of mine, I like to say, I know this to be true.
I love that.
I don't know. That's the one that always sticks in my, just kind of naturally. I just am like, I know this to be true. And thank you for clarifying all of that. Inspired, or you called it aligned action?
Aligned action.
Aligned action. I've always in my head called it like inspired action. But for anyone listening, what we're talking about is like you can manifest as much as you want, but you also have to kind of meet the universe halfway, which means you also have to, it's not like I could infuse this Post-it with, I want to basically build yoga for you even before it had a name. I could do that all I wanted, but if I never took the steps, if I never put myself out there, if I never started teaching yoga classes, if I never said, hey, this class is going well, I'm going to add on another class, like that's kind of that aligned or inspired action that you have to do to kind of meet the universe halfway. And something that I am actually going to start tonight is there's certain projects that I want to work on that I feel like I always tell myself like I don't have the time for them. And so something that I've decided I want to do is get in the habit of spending 30 minutes. I was ambitious at first, thinking maybe I'll spend an hour after the kids go to bed, but like, I don't know, sometimes I get tired. So a minimum of 30 minutes every day working on one of these projects. And I'm going to do that every day after the kids go to bed because they go to bed a little bit earlier. And if I miss a day, I'll tack it on to the next day. And it occurred to me that if I spend 30 minutes on something every day for a year, then by the end of the year, I've spent over 150 hours on it. And that's something where I'm like, okay, if I have these projects, like if I just start spending 30 minutes every day before the kids go to bed, like I don't need 150 hours to complete that task. And I can create that space for myself through this little habit. But anyways, just wanted to share that's something anyone building a dream or working towards certain manifestations and it feels like a really big end point. Is there a way that you can just say, okay, I just 30 minutes each day. I'm going to spend it when my 30 minutes are up. I can be done. If I want to keep working, okay, but I can be done. And then I'm going to do that, every day.
Yeah. I love what you said about meeting the universe halfway, because that is the misconception with manifestation, is that you just speak it into existence and then it's there. But your soul has to be intertwined in it as well. And I almost find that with new moon meditations or journaling on it, even if you like allowing yourself to journal on your craziest, wildest, biggest dreams, even just by putting pen to paper, that almost will initiate that aligned action for you in a way, like, cause it's now out somewhere in the world and that energy is going to be carried through you. You might just have this like inkling, this call one day to be like, I wrote about moving here. Why don't I just start looking into it and actually take the steps to move? So it's very subconscious work as well. Like, so don't hold yourself back when you write down your manifestations. Like you can allow them to be crazy and allow them to be out there and your biggest, wildest things that you've always felt your soul be pulled to, and just kind of trust that like, even by putting it out there on the paper, that could be what sparks your aligned action in a way. And that's why journaling on the new moon is so like potent, because that new moon energy is also then supporting you put all of those dreams on the paper more so into the world.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for clarifying that. And what are we supposed to do in between the new moon and the full moon? Are there any particular like I hear about like a waning moon, a waxing moon, a crescent, all these different moons. But if we have kind of the new moon and the full moon as sort of like our, point A and point B, and we have that cycle, what do we do in between that with meditation?
Yeah. So between new moon to full moon, we're going to be waxing. The moon's going to be growing and you'll see more and more of it. So when it's waxing, it's kind of good to start building on things. In meditation, like focusing more on those, like maybe manifestations or even like focusing on meditation that will really energize you to continue with this momentum of growing and building whatever you launched around that new moon. Between the full moon and the new moon, again, it's going to be a waning phase. So full moon is high and bright. We're going to see less and less of the moon. So that's waning. And when it's waning, it's kind of a good time just to nourish your system, to ground down a little bit more. The energy is slowly going to be decreasing as we head towards that new moon. And I really like just meditating on like embodiment, like grounding my body, getting back into my body, because all this energy that's been built up to the full moon can feel like a lot on your system by this point. So just really coming back to some nice like relaxation breath with longer exhales, into some grounding exercises where you feel your body connect to the floor. There's so many ways where you can kind of just like wind down, like start to relax, maybe even adding in like some more yoga nidra by this point on the waning crescent moon, because that'll be when your energy is probably going to be dwindling down a little bit and you're preparing almost like for a rest time to restart again and just get more clear on maybe like what's happened, what's blocking you the past, cycle, the past maybe 2 weeks of the moon waxing. And then as it's waning, like what are some blocks that you can slowly release and like let go as the moon slowly fades away?
Okay, that's helpful because I always wondered, like, I feel like we hear a lot about new moon and full moon, but then if you're really trying to like embody the full moon cycle, there's all of this like in between time as well. Are there any particular meditation styles that you feel like fit well when you're working with the moon, other than like we've talked about manifestation and, working on even like mindful journaling, things like that? But of all the styles that you've studied or that you share in practice, are there any that are your favorites?
Well, I love too for moons. I always bring in some form of like affirmation to the moon, and I link that up with the breath. And also just like open awareness, because in the moon meditations that I create, I often just kind of pose open questions around like the sign that the moon is in and just allowing yourself to sit with it and like feel what naturally comes up. It's almost like this more Buddhist style of meditation where you're just completely open and allowing almost like the moon to send you a message on whatever it is you need to hear, or allowing the universe to send you a message on what you need to hear. And of course, guided imagery, because it's my favorite, it's your favorite. Like literally seeing the moon, it can feel so powerful to actually feeling it, like seeing the white light cleansing and renewing you and purifying you. And then I sometimes take it a step further of like you maybe like growing a little like root towards the moon, from a certain body part that links with the zodiac sign that it's in. I take it like a lot of levels, like you said, and just really feeling that like connection to not only the moon, but also like the zodiac sign, the constellation that it's sitting in.
Oh my gosh, there's so much of this stuff. Speaking of like moon and astrology, one of my favorite things that you do is you're so gifted at saying, oh, there's a new moon in Capricorn. That means this and this and this. Here's how you can use this new moon in Capricorn energy to whatever. Give us like the 101 level. How can you start to weave, and what does it even mean when someone says like we have a new moon in Scorpio or a full moon in Virgo? One, what does this mean? And two, what is like the 101 level of how can you work with the moon cycle and the astrology at the same time?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked this. I can't wait to talk about it. And I'll try to keep it 101.
102 is okay too.
So when we say like, for example, the new moon is in Virgo, that means that, astronomically, the moon is in this constellation of Virgo. All the signs are constellations that exist far, far away from us. But from our perspective here on Earth, we see this moon as in front of this constellation almost. That's when it's in this sign. And how to work with it is basically, I love using the astrology and like the zodiac signs to work with the new moon and full moon, just because it gives you that more focus and like more intention of like where the energy is going to be most supported. And so that is told to us in the sign that it's in. So when the new moon is in Virgo, we would want to focus intentions or maybe notice themes around our life in the Virgo area, because all the 12 zodiac signs rule very different parts of, personality. They have different traits. They have different characteristics. And so sometimes on a new moon in Virgo, we might feel more called to set healthier habits and focus on our healing and our health and maybe find a way to be of service, versus on a new moon in Capricorn, we might feel like we want to create some more long-term goals and long-term plans and like hone in on our ambition, just because those are Capricorn themes. So that's why I like working with the themes with each sign, because that helps you narrow down on like what exactly to focus on if you feel very lost, or you might already naturally be feeling called to focus on these areas just because, the cosmic world impacts us as much as we like to believe it or not. And so, yeah, I feel like that's the basic of like the new moon is in, Virgo, for example. And so work with intentions around Virgo themes, or you may even see Virgo themes happening more so in your life. And that's just like a way to validate and affirm like, oh, okay, that's why this is showing up, or that's why I feel called to this. I'm just going to kind of let it happen because this is really in natural flow of the cosmic climate right now.
Okay. And can you speak a little bit to what we're in right now? It's like mid-November-ish. What cycle are we in? I believe it's Scorpio season, which I personally love. Some of the most special people in my life. I know Scorpios get a bad rap, but I love a Scorpio. Are we in Scorpio season?
Yes. So it's
Tell us
in
about
November.
Like the astrological forecast for people listening in real time and what that means for their meditation practice.
Yes. So, also love that you love Scorpios, because I'm a Scorpio moon and
I knew this. I knew there was something I liked about you. And I think we talked about this when we did even my chart reading. I was like, I just love a Scorpio.
It's a good balance. So yeah, Scorpio season runs from about like October 22nd to about November 22nd, give or take, a few days, because we do wobble a little bit. Scorpio season, when the sun is in Scorpio, we're going to feel more probably deep and just like this desire to go a little deeper with our daily life. You might feel these emotions a little deeper. You might be having deeper conversations. You might be wanting to psychoanalyze everything, or you might feel more drawn to, nurturing your mental health and kind of unpacking, like psychoanalyzing yourself almost, and like unpacking wounds, unpacking obsessions, unpacking things that you've been maybe holding on to, in, many, many layers, even like beyond this current life. Like Scorpio runs very, very deep. It's very penetrating energy, and it can be just intense. So if your emotions are a little bit heightened, that's totally normal and that's okay. When we're going to be in between, I believe, I have to like just check
check where we are in terms of the moon, because I'd love to hear more about, what in real time we could be doing with our meditation. And then I also want to hear about the meditation that you're putting together for Sunday, because little spoiler alert, it's going to be like exactly what we need based on what's happening with the moon and the stars and all of that.
Yes. So when this is released, we're actually right in between a new moon and a full moon. So which means we're in a waxing phase right now. The new moon in Scorpio would have been on November 1st, and then the full moon in Taurus will be on November 15th. So we're kind of in this waxing phase right now. So we could be like growing in energy. It could be a good time to just like meditate on, the things in your body or in your spirit that you want to kind of like invigorate and like wake up a little bit more. But the full moon in Taurus that I'll be sharing on this podcast will be a lot about celebrating and harvesting and just kind of coming to terms with like those Taurus themes. So Taurus is very grounding, very sensible, very of the like five senses. super in tune with like sensuality and just like enjoying life. So actually this full moon will be probably one you want to take like a little bit easier just because it is in Taurus. And even releasing like the shadow sides to Taurus is what I would be offering in this like full moon practice, because it is a full moon. So we do have a chance to release. And because it's in Taurus, we have a chance to release the shadow sides of Taurus. So maybe any stubbornness, any feeling that we're moving too slow and that there's like pressure to move faster in life. And even like certain, sluggishness in the body that could be good to like release and allow yourself to like stand in your own power. Cause I feel like Taurus sometimes likes to stay on the sidelines and be on the bylines and just, sink in its like, luxuries, and it's Venus ruled. So very, wanting to like enjoy the beauty of everything, but it's almost like, can you release something that's preventing you from taking action now? I always like to counterbalance like the shadow side of the sign with something that you can work on releasing with the full moon. So Taurus tends to move like just a little bit more slower and steadier. It's okay to honor that slowness and steadiness, but is there somewhere that you're intentionally being too slow because you're scared, or you don't want this, you're preventing something within you that feels like it's not ready to be released? And can you release that on this full moon? So yeah, that's kind of the little plan for full moon in Taurus.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about all of that and to listen to the practice. And you just like are so knowledgeable about all of this. Two quick things. And then I want to kind of wrap up and talk about more about you and what you offer. But also I want to talk about like my own experience doing a reading, because there's some things that I still think about. This was like months ago. And there's some things that still, and a change I recently made in my life because of it that I want to share with you that I haven't told you about yet. But before we do that, can you tell, what do you know about moon bathing and moon water? Because these are two things that I hear about like on the internet, and I'm like, I need Ashley to weigh in.
Yes. So, moon bathing, I've heard it. I haven't done it too much just because of where I live. I feel like if you live by the coast, it's really easy to moon bathe, but that's kind of what I reenact in my meditations, is by visualizing, like definitely on a full moon where you can feel the moon's like full light, bathing in like the moonbeams and letting it wash over you and bring this like serene essence to you, and also feeling it like cleanse and purify you. So, that's kind of the concept of moon bathing, but like in real life, versus just through a guided like visualization. I feel like the visualization is just as powerful though. But if you can be in the moonlight, for a full moon meditation, that would just like amplify things even more and just make you feel like even more connected and like actually feeling like the light of the moon, because it's so soft and so gentle. It can be really nurturing, like for you on a health basis as well. And moon water is so fun. I've started working more with it this year. So with moon water, you kind of just take a jar and fill it up with like some distilled water and then leave it out on your porch where the moonlight would reach it, and then allow the moonbeams to become infused with the moon water. And then it's almost like Reiki, but with the moon. Mm-hmm. And now the moon water is, kind of a sacred liquid for you to use either to drink to kind of cleanse more stuff within you. You could use it to clean your house, just that you have this energetic level of cleaning your house. You could use it in like room sprays too, so that every time you're using this room spray, you're kind of infusing that cleaning, supportive energy of the moon with it. So yeah, those are mostly moon bathing, and creating moon water is mostly done during full moons, because, the full moon light can infuse with it. And then it will have like kind of this Reiki-like energy about that water, so that you can use it to cleanse, heal, whatever you need. Some people use moon water on areas that they've had like injuries or just like chronic pain. And I actually had someone who had like sciatica issues, and he came to a restorative and yoga nidra I had on the Capricorn full moon, and we created moon water at this event, and he put some on his like back where it was hurting him, and he started to feel better. So
that's cool.
It's really cool to use for like healing. Definitely not like, your only health solution, but it's kind of just good because so much of healing is how we feel and how we believe that it will work. So that like, that awareness, that consciousness will be infused into when you use the moon water as well. So it's just like using it with intention is such a beautiful part of moon water.
That is so cool. Okay, I want to talk about the self-discovery starter backpack because this is something that I did. I just like out of the blue booked myself for. I saw you had I just saw you posting about it and I was like, that looks so cool. And so I just booked myself in. Also, one thing that I will say is anyone out there who has a friend who is either starting a business or has an established business or offers services, I think it's really important that you always pay for those services. Like just book yourself in like you're a regular client. I'm saying this like on behalf of all of my, especially like my wellness based business owners. That's something that I've just noticed. Someone told me this thing that always stuck with me. I was doing like a little bit of kind of like a women in business, sort of like a mastermind. And the person who was running this mastermind said, hey, like, and it was all sorts of business owners. Like I was in there, meditation teacher, there's like a lawyer, there's, anything. As long as you were a woman and ran a business, you could be in this group. And she said this really interesting thing where she said, we have the opportunity. There's so many of us that are working on different projects, graphic designers, et cetera, et cetera. She said, we have the opportunity to create a really cool kind of like micro economy within ourselves. And she said, one rule that we have for this group is you are not allowed to ask people basically their professional advice or for their services for free because you're in this group together. It was an expectation that you would respect everyone else's time and their fees. And that's always stuck with me because I think about how as business owners, we have the opportunity and like, even if our friends are starting a business to engage in their work in like a respectful way by always like booking ourselves through, the normal way and, making sure that we're not asking for things for free or discounts. I don't know. I just felt compelled to like share that. And I also want to say that this is something that I like booked and paid for. This wasn't something that you like gifted to me. So what I'm about to, when people are like, this isn't an ad or a review, I bought it with my own money. That is how I feel about your self-discovery starter pack. Because I definitely just booked myself in and paid for it. And it truly was incredible. And let me know if I leave anything out, but my experience, is it supposed to be 2 hours or did we just take 2 hours because we're chatty?
We're just chatty. They're usually 90 minutes.
Okay. So it's supposed to be 90 minutes. Ashley and I got a little chatty at the end, but we started with this really beautiful meditation to just like come into the body, come into the space, like be open to receiving the information. And then Ashley read my birth chart and then she did my human design reading. And then we ended with numerology. And then the last piece that we did was another meditation to kind of just let the information sort of sit and like seep in. It was this really kind of beautiful like close to what we were talking about, right? Did I get all the components? Okay.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see. I have done these things individually. I think all of them. I've done a numerology thing like online once where you tell them like your birthday and then it gives you like this little report. So not like super detailed. I've done human design before and I have had the other astrology Ashley Sondergaard, who I hope to have on this podcast at a later date to talk really specifically about like birth charts and what that means. She's done my birth chart reading before, but it was so cool to have the three working together. And something that you told me based on my birth chart, there's like two things, or not on my birth chart, on my reading, two things that really stuck out to me. One is you said something that I'm here for my wisdom and not my time. Or like I'm here to give my wisdom, not my time.
Yeah.
And that has always stuck with me. And it's because of my human design, right?
Yes, you're a projector. And so projectors have inconsistent energy, but they can see into systems and people really well. So they're here to guide. They're not really here to like do.
And that stuck with me. And I have been using that and I have to always wait for permission to share. I need to get the invitation. I need to get the ask. And I've really been looking out for that a little bit professionally, but almost more personally. I feel like it's kind of impacted the way that I interact with people where I can tell if they are not energetically like inviting me to share my insights and my thoughts. And it's honestly been really helpful of trying to discern these sort of like emotional boundaries that sometimes sometimes people share something with me and they just want me to listen. They don't want me to then start, analyzing it or, looking into it or giving suggestions. They just want me to listen. And I found that to be really helpful. And part of this is actually what inspired my take 30 minutes a day, because I remember you saying something about how just the way that I'm designed, I'm not supposed to spend like a ton of time doing like the admin or the stuff that doesn't feel like super fun to me. And so breaking some of that stuff up, because like I love yoga nidra teacher training, but thinking about, okay, I need to sit here and like make all of the slides that then correspond with the lecture. So then I can put it together and complete that, portion of that module. That's the piece that then sometimes I feel like I get a little stuck on, getting done, kind of more of the admin piece. And so you really inspired me to also look at how am I dividing my time during the day and like what feels fulfilling to me and what doesn't feel as fulfilling and how can I adjust kind of that ratio. And it's been really helpful.
Oh, I love to hear that you're already implementing some parts of your design, because that's what I love about just both modalities like astrology and human design, because you can start to make these changes like as immediately as you did, like after our reading, and notice differences and just even being aware that, oh, I'm not being invited, so I'm not going to offer my advice because then it probably won't be received and then I might feel bitter. So even just, I think human design is so helpful when it comes to work. So if you have your own business or if you're trying to figure out like how to balance like just work and your energy levels, it's so important, because I love that you made the change to just do 30 minutes a day, because that really is the most supportive for you as a projector with inconsistent energy, to do only like really 2 to 4 hours of max output where, things that you don't love, and then spend the rest of your time focusing on what you're fascinated on. And even like for me in my own design, like I'm a manifesting generator. So I really love blending a lot of different things. So hence the moon and meditation, hence wellness and self-discovery, and really allowing myself to like carve my own path in this blended perspective that I offer and I create, and that it doesn't have to, be by the book or follow, a certain, standard or course. Like it really, the gift of it is like just my own insight and my own perspective and, my stories with it too, and allowing my energy to jump from one thing to another, because that's also how I work best, is when I have variety in what I work on. So just knowing these things about yourself is so, so crucial in going about your just day to day. And so that you can work with your energy and not against it. And then also not feel like you're doing something wrong or like drained, or that you see this person next to you in the co-working space grinding for 4 hours straight, and then you feel shame that you can't do that. It just releases all of that and allows you to honor like how you were designed.
100%. And I also learned what North Node and South Node was from you and what that meant. It's like your journey through life, right?
Yes.
Can you just briefly touch on like North Node and South Node and like how it kind of tells you, it's like kind of your life lesson, right?
It is. It's a lot of your life path and a bit of your life purpose as well. And the nodes are actually connected to the moon, because there are certain points, there's like 2 points on the moon. And what it will look like on your birth chart is either an upside down U or like a horseshoe.
Like a little horseshoe, yeah.
Yeah, like the upside down one is the South Node, and the horseshoe upright one is the North Node. And they're always going to be in opposing signs to each other. So even knowing what sign they're in, you can feel the qualities of maybe in the South Node, some qualities that you may have felt really early on in life or in a past life. And your North Node, which is completely opposite to that, is what you're supposed to grow into, what you're supposed to embrace. And like that kind of, it's your signpost that you are headed in the path that your soul like chose, in a way, like karmically, like you were meant to learn this lesson and bridge this gap between the South Node to the North Node. So I believe yours was.
I think I'm supposed to learn. I'm moving into like relationships and learning how to like rely on more people. The thing that stuck with me was that I was kind of starting from a space of being a little bit more like self-sufficient, like individualized, kind of being this like one-man wolf pack, if you will, and then learning how to grow into then maybe being a little bit more collaborative. I believe it was in the house that has to do with like relationships, family, all of that. And so I'm learning how to then not have to always just rely on me, which is something I'm still sitting with, because that was a really big kind of like eye opener for me.
Yes, I remember now. Your south node is in the first house of self, and then your north node's in the seventh house of like marriage and partnerships and like trusted collaborations. So definitely you have this natural gift in this life to do things yourself and really focus on yourself as well and know exactly what you need. And now your journey is to, can you allow yourself to be in the presence of others in a trusting way where you almost like can surrender control to whatever it is to this other person, and you know that they will still honor you and fulfill whatever you want. It's not to mean that our south node gifts are completely erased as we head towards our north node, but you're like taking this with you. You have a sense of self while also having a sense of how to work very collaboratively in partnerships and in a very harmonious way, because it is the house of Libra in a way too. So in a very harmonious way where it doesn't drain you as an individual, but you know where you stand and you know where the other person stands, and you both can co-create that harmony.
Yes. Okay. So helpful. So everyone needs to go book one of those with Ashley, like 100%. It was truly just I just love the experience. It's something I'm still thinking about like a couple months later. But Ashley, as we're wrapping up here, tell everyone about your new offerings and then also where and how we can connect with you.
Yes. So the few things I'm offering right now, which you can all find on my website, it's awake-in-wellness.com. So one of them is what Kelly mentioned, the self-discovery starter pack readings. They're 90-minute readings that I can do virtual or in person if you're in Denver. And it includes an opening and closing meditation. You get a customized PDF packet with your birth chart, your human design, and your numerology, and a reading from me, and that is all recorded as well, so you can go back to it, and you also have this little resource to look back on as well. And I really infuse both, so you can see, like, if you're so new to human design and you're familiar with astrology, I can kind of translate the astrology into human design and vice versa. Or if you're completely new to both, I kind of give you a good like starter, to lean into your gifts and start to use them like the next day and really feel empowered by them. The second thing I'm offering is what I mentioned earlier. I'm creating these what I call custom meditations. It's called the Stillness to Self. So it's a 30-minute custom guided meditation that is inspired by your birth chart and your human design. You can pick which one you want kind of more to embody. But yeah, it's going to be a custom written and created audio that I'll email to you, and you have that MP3 to play as many times as you want. You can play it whenever you're feeling a little distorted or lost or unsettled. So I think it's a really beautiful way to meditate on like just your own uniqueness. And then I also have these resources. It's called the Wellness Guide for Your Moon Sign. It's a digital offering, and it's going to include it includes a zip file with a custom meditation for your moon sign. So you can check, are you an Aries moon, Scorpio moon, Capricorn moon, whichever moon guide it is, there's a guided audio specifically for your moon sign. And there's also a PDF with like meditation tips, yoga poses, embodiments specifically for that moon sign, and somatic practices, and daily self-care rituals, all catered to how your moon sign operates and works, because your moon sign is like one of your most important signs to get to know, because it's how you feel emotionally safe, and it's how you can ground yourself in moments where you do feel very distorted and lost and just like ungrounded. Like your moon is going to tell you how you best ground and how you feel almost like emotionally satisfied every day. So because, I'm so passionate about working with the moon, I'm offering this little wellness guide so that you can feel supported and kind of have some ideas in the like wellness space and embodiment space to actually like feel what the moon sign feels for you, instead of just kind of reading the article and like mentally processing it. So this is allowing your body to process like the gifts of your moon sign. So that's available on my website as well. And
I'll link to everything in the show notes.
Yes.
But how can we best connect with you?
Yes, I'm on Instagram at awake.in.wellness. So awaken wellness. And if you ever want to connect for any deeper dive astrology or human design readings, like kind of one-off readings, you can always email me, Ashley at awake-in-wellness.com.
Amazing. Thank you for all of that, Ashley. And thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. Like, I learned so much, and I appreciate you coming and helping me out for Meditation and the Moon 101 with your PhD level knowledge of meditation and the moon. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm going to put all of that information in the show notes so you guys can connect with Ashley. And she's going to lead Sunday's meditation. And I can't wait to hear it.
So excited. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.